Good morning, grandkids. Now that the game of Dagon has come out, I'm going to play the game. It shows a lot in the beginning of the demo and then continues on from there. So let's go with this. Am I upside down? Oh no, that's a ceiling. What am I? Where am I? What's happening? I seem to be in a very small room, but I don't seem to see any door. Alright, what's over in the window? I can't walk over there?
Penniless, and at the end of my supply of the drug which alone makes life endurable, I can bear the torture no longer, and shall cast myself from this garret window into the squalid street below.
He's on drugs. I guess because he can't stand his life anymore.
Do not think from my slavery to morphine that I am a weakling or a degenerate.
Morphine. I've had morphine before when I was being in an ambulance taken to a hospital a long time ago. It felt pretty good. I can imagine why people get hooked on it. Let me see. Do not think I'm a weakling or a degenerate. No, if you're taking it for other than just being a druggie.
When you have read these hastily scrawled pages, you may guess, though never fully realize, why it is that I must have forgetfulness or death.
Wow, he must have been through a lot. What is that? Oh, he's writing.
It was in one of the most open and least frequented parts of the broad Pacific that the packet of which I was supercargo fell a victim to the German sea raider.
Cool picture.
The Great War was then at its very beginning, and the ocean forces of the Hun had not completely sunk to their later degradation. So that our vessel was made a legitimate prize, whilst we of her crew were treated with all the fairness and consideration due us as naval prisoners.
Well, that was nice. At least they weren't treated badly. So, can I walk around and do something now? No, just point on things far away.
So liberal, indeed, was the discipline of our captors, that 5 days after we were taken, I managed to escape alone in a small boat with water and provisions for a good length of time. When I finally found myself adrift and free, I had but little idea of my surroundings. Never a competent navigator, I could only guess vaguely by the sun and stars that I was somewhat south of the equator. Of the longitude, I knew nothing, and no island or coastline was in sight.
What am I supposed to click on? Oh, the sun, or the moon.
The weather kept fair, and for uncounted days I drifted aimlessly beneath the scorching sun, waiting either for some passing ship or to be cast on the shores of some habitable land.
That is really cool, the way they made that sunlight look on that water. I really like that. I gotta have a picture of that. Now what? Okay. My water pouch.
But neither
Ooh.
ship nor land appeared, and I began to despair in my solitude upon the heaving vastness of unbroken blue.
I would probably be feeling sort of scared to death by now.
The change happened whilst I slept. Its details I shall never know, for my slumber, though troubled and dream-infested, was continuous.
I don't like that. It's details I will never know. Now this is like the demo, which I really thought was cool and spooky. Look at all that. There's his wrecked little boat he was in.
When at last I awoke, it was to discover myself half sucked into a slimy expanse of hellish
Yuck.
black mire, which extended about me in monotonous undulations as far as I could see.
All the words he uses is really yucky too.
And in which my boat lay grounded some distance away.
Good writing.
Though one might well imagine that my first sensation would be of wonder at so prodigious and unexpected a transformation of scenery, I was in reality more horrified than astonished.
I was going to say wonder. I would be horrified.
For there was in the air and in the rotting soil a sinister quality which chilled me to the very core.
Me too.
The region was putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish and of other less describable things which I saw protruding from the nasty mud of the unending plain.
Is this a dev writer, or is this the actual phrasing from one of Cthulhu's or one of Lovecraftian's books? Whichever, it's great.
Perhaps I should not hope to convey in mere words the unutterable hideousness that can dwell in absolute silence and barren immensity. There was nothing within hearing and nothing in sight save a vast reach of black slime. Yet the very completeness of the stillness and the homogeneity of the landscape oppressed me with a nauseating fear.
I'd like to take a picture without the words, but I can't.
The sun was blazing down from a sky which seemed to me almost black in its cloudless cruelty, as though reflecting the inky marsh beneath my feet.
Oh, now I can take a picture. Oh, listen to them steps.
As I crawled into the stranded boat, I realized that only one theory could explain my position.
Really? I can't even imagine what theory.
Through some unprecedented volcanic upheaval, a portion of the ocean floor must have been thrown to the surface, exposing regions for which innumerable millions of years had lain hidden under unfathomable watery depths.
That would have been a mighty, mighty huge upheaval to get the bottom of the ocean all the way up there, and no water on it.
So great was the extent of the new land which had risen beneath me that I could not detect the faintest noise of the surging ocean, straining my ears as I might.
Wow.
Nor were there any seafowl to prey upon the dead things.
Ew.
For several hours I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side and afforded a slight shade as the sun moved across the heavens.
I'd sit brooding there too, and I would be scared to death to take off in any direction.
As the day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness and seemed likely to dry sufficiently for traveling purposes in a
I
short
don't know
time.
how it could have.
That night I slept but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to an overland journey in search of the vanished sea and possible rescue.
Look at that light on the water. I like that. Oh, I should have waited.
On the third morning, I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease.
I still wouldn't think so, but for the sake of the story.
The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was too much concerned with graver things to mind so slight an evil, and set out boldly for an unknown goal.
That would be bold. Not me, man. I guess I would just sit there and die. Where am I supposed to... Oh, there. Head into the sun.
All day I forged steadily westward, guided by a faraway hummock which rose higher than any other elevation on the rolling desert.
Desert? Doesn't that look yucky? Look at this. Just muddy water, slimy, sloppy grossness. I hope he's going to have to climb that hill. That's what I want to do.
That night, I encamped, and on the following day still travelled toward the hummock, though that object seemed scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it.
I know it gave us information.
By the fourth evening, I attained the base of the mound, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance.
I know it talked at the beginning, before the game started, about what the game was like, but it's still kind of disappointing that there's so many blacked out cutscenes. And I'm afraid that will be... I know it's just a story-driven game, but I like to do things in myself. But I will go through this anyway. I want to go up that mountain, and I'll bet it's not going to let me.
An intervening valley setting it out in sharper relief from the general surface. Too weary to ascend, I slept in the shadow of the hill.
Oh, yuck, I bet he had to sleep in that muck.
I know not why my dreams were so wild that night.
Oh, I can imagine why.
But ere the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far above the eastern plain, I was awake in a
Very
cold
cool.
perspiration, determined to sleep no more.
I want that picture, but without the words.
Such visions as I had experienced were too much for me to endure again.
I don't blame you, mister.
And in the glow of the moon I saw how unwise I had been to travel by day.
Is he up on top of the mountain now?
Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy.
Oh, no.
Indeed, I now felt quite able to perform the ascent which had deterred me at sunset.
Okay, let's go.
Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence. I have said that the unbroken monotony of the rolling plain was a source of vague horror to me. But I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon, whose black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to illumine.
I knew I wouldn't get to climb it.
I felt myself on the edge of the world, peering over the rim into a fathomless chaos of eternal night.
Oh, wow, don't fall off of there.
Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost, and of Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness.
I never read Paradise Lost. I should read that.
As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined.
Oh, I can walk closer.
Ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent.
Ooh, what is that little blue speckled stuff way down there? If it was in real life, it could be a little town down there. All right. Easy footholds for descent. Okay, let's go
Whilst
down.
After a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual.
Can I look behind me? No.
Urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gentler slope beneath.
Wow, that's strange looking after all that sloppy bottom of the ocean he'd been walking across. Now there's mountains and stuff around.
Gazing into the Stygian deeps, where no light had yet penetrated. All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me.
Oh, that looks farther away than that.
An object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon.
We're going to climb down some more.
That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself. But I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature.
Well, hardly. You can tell that by looking at it.
A closer scrutiny filled me with sensations I cannot express.
Fear could be one of them.
For despite its enormous magnitude, and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young.
Whoa, think of that being down there for eons.
I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith.
I already perceived that.
Whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures.
Yep.
Dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientist's or archaeologist's delight, I examined my surroundings more closely.
Let's walk on.
The moon, now near the zenith, shone weirdly and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm.
Yeah, the towering cliffs that hemmed in.
And revealed the fact that a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions, and almost lapping my feet as I stood on the slope.
Has he got to wade out to that thing? Look at all the symbols on it. Look, in the middle is the ocean waves going across. Up above is all kinds of fishies in the monolith. Below is all kinds of strange living creatures unknown to us.
Across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the Cyclopean monolith, on whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures.
Sorry, I had to turn my phone off.
The writing
Whoa.
was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me and unlike anything I'd ever seen in books.
There's Cthulhu in the middle of it. Oh, I don't get to look down below
Consisting for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like.
Yeah, well, that might be an octopi in the middle, but it looks like Cthulhu to me.
Several characters obviously represented marine things which are
and so
unknown
does
to the
that
modern
down there.
world, but whose decomposing forms I had observed on the ocean-risen plain.
Yes, and that was cool back there, and I want to know what it all is.
It was the pictorial carving, however, that did most to hold me spellbound. Plainly visible across the intervening water, on account of their enormous size, were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of a Doré. I think that these things were supposed to depict men, at least a certain sort of men.
These down there, not up there. And you won't let me lower.
Though the creatures
There
were
you
shown
go.
disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto.
How about that?
Or paying homage at some monolithic shrine which appeared to be under the waves as well.
See, I knew that was waves and under the waves.
Of their faces and forms I dare not speak in detail, for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint,
Wow.
grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer.
Oh, I've read Poe, but I don't know a Bulwer. I'll have to look that up.
They were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips.
I do not see any wide and flabby lips. Maybe that one in the, right at the top.
Glassy, bulging eyes, and other features less pleasant to recall. Curiously enough, they seem to have been chiseled badly out of proportion with their scenic background.
Well, you can only do so much on a slab of stone.
For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger than himself. I remarked, as I say, their grotesqueness and strange size, but in a moment decided that they were merely the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe. Some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born. Awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the most daring anthropologist, I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me.
And it's doing a very cool job of it, too.
Then, suddenly, I saw it.
What? What?
With only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface, the thing slid into view above the dark waters. Vast, Polyphemus-like and loathsome,
Holy
it
cow!
darted like a
Where's its
stupendous
head?
monster of nightmares to the monolith.
Where's its head?
About which it flung its gigantic
There it
scaly
is.
arms, the while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to certain measured sounds.
Uh-oh.
I think I went mad then.
I would too.
Of my frantic ascent of the slope and cliff, and of my delirious journey back to the stranded boat, I remember
he went all the
little.
way back to the boat? And we don't get to see any of that. Okay. Oh, I thought he'd be back at the boat. He's just climbed up that cliff. Where do I go? Where's my... There.
I believe I sang a great deal and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing.
Sang and laughed? He has gone mad.
I have indistinct recollections of a
he's
great
back.
storm sometime after I reached the boat.
Really?
At any rate, I know that I heard pearls of thunder and other tones which nature utters only in her wildest moods.
The wildest moods. I like that. Oh, I should have taken a picture of that while I had the chance.
When I came out of the shadows, I was in a San Francisco
What?
hospital. Brought thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean.
Oh, he got picked up in the ocean. What about all that muck and monolith?
In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention.
Probably not. They probably are going to put him in an insane asylum.
Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing.
Oh, great. Don't tell me this is going to be all a dream. I want to know all about that muck he was in and what happened.
Nor did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe. Once I sought out a celebrated ethnologist and amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god.
I always take a picture too quickly. Dagon was the main deity of the Philistines. Oh, worshipped throughout the Middle East as the ancient god of fertility and crops. In Hebrew, the word Dagon was a common noun for grain. The rulers of Akkad, Mesopotamia, chose him as the patron saint of their war conquests. He also appeared as the judge of the dead in an Assyrian poem and an underworld prison warder in one of the Babylonian texts. He is often mistakenly taken for a fish god due to the wrong interpretation of his name, as in Hebrew the word dag means fish. In H.P. Lovecraft's works, Dagon is an underwater deity ruling over the deep ones, a humanoid race with fish traits that resides in the oceans. He is worshipped by a secret cult called the Esoteric Order of Dagon. Interesting, interesting. Can I walk around in here a little bit? No. I want to go over there and check out the books. You can only click on things from a distance. You can't ever walk over to them.
But soon perceiving that he was hopelessly conventional, I did not press my inquiries.
So that guy hardly believed him either. Still can't walk anywhere. Now, way over there, I click on something. Here's where I wanted to come a while ago. Alright, what am I supposed to click on here? Oh, I got to come over here and look at this and take my picture that I wanted at least.
It is at night, especially when the moon is gibbous and waning, that I see the thing.
Is this his own apartment? There's another syringe and a bottle of morphine. Must be. Oh yeah, he's still sitting here at his desk writing these notes.
I tried morphine, but the drug has given only transient surcease and has drawn me into its clutches as a hopeless slave.
Yeah, it's very addictive.
So now I am to end it all, having written a full account for the information or the contemptuous amusement of my fellow men. Often,
Oops,
I
he's
ask
taken
myself
some.
if it could not all have been a pure phantasm.
Really?
A mere freak of fever as I lay sun-stricken and raving in the open boat after my escape from the German man of war.
Really?
This I ask myself, but ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply. I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed.
Oh my God.
Worshipping their ancient stone idols and carving their own detestable likenesses on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite. I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down into their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind.
I wish one of you devs would comment to me under this video and let me know if you had a writer writing these wonderful words or if they are direct words from Lovecraft.
Of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium.
Oh my goodness, wouldn't that be horrible? Look at that. Waving back and forth. Everything's waving back and forth. That Statue of Liberty. Be still, lady.
The end is near.
Your end or the end of the world or something? What do you mean there? What's walking? Or pounding? Oh, and there's his bed. This first time I've seen his whole room. Oh, something's pounding against his door, and he's got his chest of drawers shoved up against it so it can't get in. Holy cow. I'm not getting anything to click on, but it's not letting me.
I hear a noise
There
at the
it goes.
door,
It wouldn't let
as of
me.
some immense slippery body lumbering against it.
You couldn't tell if it was a slippery body or not.
find me.
He is so convinced that it's one of them aquatic beings that he's going to take enough morphine to die. Good grief.
God, that hand!
What hand? Oh, I see it.
The window! The window!
He committed suicide. We hope you enjoyed immersing yourself in our little pool of cosmic horror. We would appreciate it if you took a moment to rate Dagon and check out our other games and DLCs. Holy cow! That's the end of the game? He committed suicide, and we never got to know whether he was hallucinating, floating in his boat, or if that was something he really saw. But he said nobody else knew what he was talking about, that there hadn't anything happened, so he must have been hallucinating, and it drove him mad. And he couldn't stand to live with it. How horrible, but that was pretty cool. What? I guess there's some more add-ons or something to it if you want to play them. Maybe I'll come back and play one and see what happened. But that's the end of this video and the end of this first part of the story. He committed suicide. That was kind of exciting.